one iteration, two iteration, three iteration. That means what? I'm going to repeat same statement again and again and again, and that is known as looping construct. So dear student, if I don't know how many number of iteration I required, in that situation I can go with while loop. Do while loop is executed at least once because the condition is checked after the body of the loop. Hello to all, a warm welcome to my new session on Introduction to .NET Programming. I am Revati, faculty from the Department of Computer Science, Vidhyashram First Grade College, the Temple of Excellence, Mysuru. So dear student, before going to start my today's session, let me to recall the topic which I have covered in my last session. So dear student, in my last session, I have started with C#, if, else, if ladder. Along with that, I have discussed C# switch statement, and these two topics are very important from the examination point of view. So dear student, this if, else, if ladder statement is also called multi-way branching. That means in one if statement, I'm going to write else part. Here itself, once again, I'm going to write the if statement. Okay. And if this statement is true, execute this line. Else, check the condition once again. So it is multiple way. I'm going to check the condition, or I'm going to verify the condition, and it is known as if, else, if ladder. And what about switch statement? You can consider the menu. So dear student, when I see the menu, I'm going to have list of options. So I'm going to select particular option at a time. So I'm going to select one particular option at a time, and that is known as switch statement. So these two are the important topic I have covered in my last session. So dear student, let's start our today's session with the concept while loop. So what is while loop? Dear student, just remember this point, that when I don't know how many iteration I required in my program, in that time I'm going to use while loop. Now let me to consider the example that I'm going to enter into the college. Now in our college gate, the job of the security guard is to check the ID card. Now, if I have Vidhyashram ID card, then they will allow me to enter into the college. Now, this while loop is going to act like a gatekeeper. That means at the beginning itself, I'm going to write the condition. And if that condition is true, enter into the while block, execute the statement. So, it is called gatekeeper. That means it's going to work or act like a gatekeeper. So, in C#, while loop is used to iterate a part of the program several times. Iterate means what? Repeat. That means whenever you want to repeat same set of statement again and again, in that time I can able to use while loop. And when I'm going to use while loop, when I don't know how many number of times I want to repeat same set of statement, in that situation I'm going to use while loop. If the number of iteration is not fixed, I don't know how many repetition I required. That means how many times I want to repeat the statement. I don't know. In that time, I'm going to use while loop. It is recommended to use while loop than for loop. So, when I'm going to use for loop, when I know how many number of times I want to execute particular statement, in that time I'm going to use for loop. But when I don't know how many times I want to repeat the statement, in that time I'm going to use while loop. Now dear student, let me to consider the syntax here. So syntax means what? How to use and how to write while loop in my program. So dear student, first I want to write while keyword. So what is the keyword here? While. Then I'm going to specify the condition, and this condition is nothing but the gatekeeper or entry point. So at the entry point, I'm going to check the condition, and if this condition is true, the control enters into the statement. So dear student, if this while condition is true, the control enters into the while block. If this condition is false, the control moves to next statement. I repeat, if this condition is true, the control transferred into while block. If this condition is false, the control transferred into next statement. This is the way while loop is going to execute. So dear student, now I'm going to have the flow chart. So here I'm going to write the condition. That means I'm going to check the condition. If this condition is true, what I want to do? I want to execute the statement which is present in the while block. If this condition is false, what I want to do? I want to execute rest of the statement. That means I want to execute the statement which is present after my while statement. So dear student, I'm going to have the example here, that is, I'm going to use using system, then I'm going to create the class, and what is my class name? While example, and I'm going to write the main function. Okay, in my program, I'm going to use the while statement. So I'm going to use while, and I'm going to have variable called I. And what is the value of I here? That is 1. And how many times I want to iterate this statement? 10 times. So here while I is how much? 1 less than or equal to 10. If this condition is true, what I want to do? I want to print the I value. So what I want to do? I want to print the I value. After that, I want to increment I by 1. So it is equal to I equal I plus 1. Now I is incremented by 1. Now I is 2. 2 less than or equal to 10. True. I'm going to print 2. Now I is incremented by 1. I is 3. 3 less than 10. It is true. I'm going to print 3. And it is going to continue. When I is 9. 9 less than or equal to 10. It is true. So what I want to do? I want to display 9. Now I is incremented by 1. Now I is 10. 10 less than or equal. See the condition here. 10 less than or equal 10. Then it is true. So I am going to display 10. Now I is incremented by 1, I is 11. 11 less than or equal to 10, the condition is false. So the control transferred to next line. That means the control transferred to the next line which is present next to the while statement. So this is the way I can able to use while loop in my program. Now I'm going to have do while loop. So dear student, this do while loop allow the programmer to execute block of statement at least one time. Then at the end, it's going to check the condition. So if the condition is false at the beginning itself, still it's going to execute that much statement at least one time. So dear student, the C hash do while loop is used to iterate a part of the program several times, and if the number of iteration is not fixed and you must have to execute the loop at least one time, then we can able to use do while looping construct. So the C hash do while loop is executed at least once because the condition is checked after the body of the loop. That means first I'm going to execute the statement, then I'm going to check the condition. So dear student, here if the given condition is failed, but still it's going to execute at least once. That means to illustrate this concept, let me to consider the example here. Think that I'm hungry. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to visit hotel and I'm going to order some food. I will have it later. I'm going to pay the bill. So what I'm going to do? First, I'm going to have my lunch or I'm going to have my food. After that, I'm going to pay the bill. Similarly, what's the working procedure of do while loop? It's going to execute this statement at least once, even though the condition is false, because the condition is checked at the end of the do while statement. Now let me to consider the syntax here. So I'm going to have the keyword do, then I'm going to open the curly brace. Inside that I'm going to write set of statement, and at the end I'm going to write the while condition, and I want to place the semicolon in order to indicate this is the end of the line. So first do, then I'm going to have my looping body and I'm going to check the condition at the end. Now I'm going to have the flow chart. See here, I'm going to have the condition. What is the working procedure of do while? First, I'm going to execute the statement. So first, I'm going to execute this statement. Then I'm going to check the condition. If the given condition is false, but still it's going to execute at least one. If the given condition is true, then execute the same statement once again. So this is the way the do while looping construct is going to work. Now I'm going to have the example here. So same example, but I'm going to use different looping construct, that is do while. So here what is my I value? Here I equal to 1. Now what I'm going to do? First I'm going to print the I value, that is 1. Now what I'm going to do? I'm going to increment I by 1, that is 2. 2 less than or equal to 10, the condition is true. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to print 2. Now I'm going to increment I by 1. Now I is 3. Now I'm going to check the condition. 3 less than or equal to 10. The condition is true. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to display 3. And it's going to continue. And when I reach 10, that is nothing but I equal to 10. 10 less than or equal to 10, it is true. So what I'm going to do? I'm going to display 10. Now I is incremented by 1. Now I is 11. 11 less than or equal to 10. The condition is failed. So the control transferred to next statement. So dear student, this is called exit condition checking. That means exit point. That means while exiting, we are going to check the condition. So dear student, what is do while loop here? It's going to execute this statement at least once, even though the specified condition is false. Now I'm going to have my last type of looping construct, that is for loop. This for loop is also used to repeat the execution. Now, when I know how many number of times I want to repeat same set of statement again and again, in that time I can go with for loop. So before itself I know how many times I want to repeat these many statements. For example, at the beginning itself know that I want to execute these many statements 5 times. In that time I can go with for loop. The C hash for loop is used to repeat a part of the program several times if the number of iteration is fixed. So the number of iteration is fixed, then I can able to go with for loop. The C hash for loop is same as C or C++ for loop. That means the syntax as well as usage of C hash for loop is similar to C or C++ for loop. Then I'm going to have the syntax here. So I'm going to use the keyword for, and this for loop is divided into 3 different parts, that is initialization, condition, increment and decrement. So dear student, let me to explain the working procedure of for loop first. So dear student, at the beginning I am going to have the initialization. That means I am going to perform all the initialization process. Once I done with my initialization, the next step is to check the condition. Now, if the specified condition is true, what I want to do? I want to execute this statement which is present inside the for loop. After that, I want to increment or decrement according to the logic. After that, once again check the condition. If the condition is true, execute the statement which is present in the for loop. Then perform increment and decrement. Once again check the condition. If the condition is true, execute the statement which is present in the for loop or which is present inside the for loop. And it is going to repeat until and unless the given condition is false. That means if the given condition is false, the control directly transferred into the rest of the statement. This is the way the for loop is going to execute. Now I am going to have the flowchart here. So first what I am going to do, I am going to initialize the variables. Then I am going to check the condition, and if this condition is true, I am going to execute this statement. After that, I'm going to perform increment and decrement based on the condition. Okay, once again, check the condition. If this condition is true, execute the statement, then increment and decrement the value, then check the condition, and this process is going to continue until unless the given condition is failed. That means once the given condition is false, the control transfer to rest of the statement. This is the way the for loop is going to execute. Now I'm going to have the simple example program, that is, I am going to display the value 1 to 10. So what is my class name here? That is nothing but for statement. Then I'm going to write the main program. Inside the main program, I'm going to use the for loop. And if I consider this for loop, I'm going to have three parts. One is initialization, condition, increment and decrement. This last part is mainly depends on the condition along with the program logic. So here each time I want to increment I value, for that reason I'm going to use increment. So first I'm going to have the initialization. I'm going to initialize I equal to 1. Now if I consider this flow chart, I'm going to perform the initialization. Once I done with initialization, what is my next step? I want to check the condition. So I'm going to check the condition, that is 1 less than or equal to 10. If this condition is true, what I want to do? I want to execute this statement which is present inside the for loop. Now, which statement I have here? That is display I value or write I value. So, I'm going to print 1. Okay, after that, what I want to do? I want to perform increment or decrement. So, what I want to do? I want to increment I by 1. So, I equal to 2 now. Then, what I want to do? I want to check the condition, that is 2 less than or equal to 10. It is true. If it is true, what I want to do? I want to execute this statement. And which statement I want to execute here? I want to print 2. After that, I want to increment. So, I am going to increment I by 1. Now, I is 3. Now, what I want to do? I want to check the condition. So, 3 less than or equal to 10. It is true. What I'm going to do? I'm going to print I. Now, I'm going to increment. And this process is going to continue until and unless the given condition is false. Now, think that I equal to 10. So, what is the value of I? It is 10. 10 less than or equal to 10. It is true. So, what I want to do? I want to print 10. After that, what I want to do? I want to increment I by 1. Now, I is 11. Now, what I want to do? I want to check the condition. 11 less than or equal to 10. It is false. So, when the specified condition is false, the control transfer to next statement which is present after my for block. This is the way I can able to use for loop in my program. So, these are the some of the types of iterative or looping statement which is supported by the C# programming. So, dear student, this is all about for loop. So, dear student, in my today's class, I started with looping construct. In that, I have covered while loop, do while loop and for loop. And when I want to use for loop, when I know how many times I want to repeat the loop. In that time, I can go with for loop. And when I want to use while loop, when I don't know how many times I want to repeat same statement. And when I want to use do while statement, when I want to execute that statement at least one time, even though the condition is false, in that time I can use do while statement. So these are the three different types of looping construct comes under C# programming. Now, in my next session, I'm going to deal with methods in C#. Anyway, dear student, let's meet in the next session with the new concept, that is methods in C#. Until that, keep watching and keep learning. Thank you.